Meteorologist Matthew East here with you. This is the March 1st, Monday edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Of course, the big topic of conversation is the winter weather threat moving into our region. And boy, it's a really tricky forecast of all the winter weather events we've had across our region this winter. Really, this is about the toughest in terms of forecasts 24 hours in advance. A lot of model disagreement. And that makes for a pretty low confidence forecast. But stay with me. At the end of this video, I'll show you what I'm thinking generally in terms of potential snow accumulation. It's a preliminary map. I'll put out my final accumulation map as we get into very early tomorrow morning. All right, so let's get into the radar this morning. There's our system, a lot of rain in much of Texas, spreading up into Oklahoma and Arkansas. And the system's certainly looking very healthy at the present time. Now let's go through the GFS. This is the 6C run of the GFS. I'm going to throw a lot of different model data at you. Just hang with me through the video. And if this kind of seems like a lot of mumbo-jumbo, just hang tight. We'll get to the end of it, and I'll show you some accumulation ideas. All right, this is, again, latest 6C run of the GFS. This is 1 o'clock this afternoon. Surface low located a little southeast of Houston. And the blue line there, that is the freezing line up at about 5,000 feet. So we go out now to 7 p.m. this evening, and the low pressure is a little south of the mouth of the Mississippi River, and you're looking at some snow trying to spread across northeastern Texas, maybe parts of extreme northern Louisiana. And again, that would probably not be a very big deal in terms of any accumulation potential back that way. The potential snow then spreads into Mississippi and Alabama. Now this is a really tricky forecast all across the region, all the way from the Tennessee Valley up through the Carolinas, as there is frankly pretty terrible model agreement amongst some of the computer models. Let's go out 6 hours later. This is 1 o'clock Tuesday morning. And the surface low located a little south of Pensacola. You go out 6 hours later, and the low pressure actually centered over the Florida Panhandle. And if that is correct, if the GFS is handling things correctly, you'd be looking at a decent swath of snow through central, actually a good chunk of Mississippi, into northern and maybe north-central Alabama, north Georgia, and then western South Carolina get into the action as we get into Tuesday morning. This is 1 o'clock Tuesday, so this is the precip from 7 a.m. tomorrow until 1 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Time. And if the GFS is correct, you're looking at some snow all the way from eastern and southeastern Tennessee into the western Carolinas, and then the precip spreads on in. And the low begins to really crank up in strength off of the Carolina coast. Here we are 1 a.m. on Wednesday. It's down to a 992 millibar low, and then finally it's down about 988 millibars by 7 a.m. on Wednesday as the low pulls away. So it's tricky. Now let me show you. I tend to side with the GFS amongst the models overall this morning. And notice the GFS, and notice it has this is up at 500 millibars, has a nice closed low still as late as 7 a.m. tomorrow before it opens it up into a trough. But it's been getting a little stronger, holding onto that closed low a little longer with most of its runs. Up at 700 millibars, nice close low, and good amount of lift with this type of scenario all the way from parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, into the western Carolinas. Finally, there's the 850 millibars set up, the 850 millibar low centered not far from Dothan in southwestern Georgia at 7 a.m. Tomorrow. And then here we are up at way up at 250 millibars, jet stream level. A lot of energy at play there. Now, compare that. Let's just go back. This is the 7 p.m. chart tomorrow from the GFS. Compare that to the same exact time on the NAM. And the NAM not nearly as strong with the low. A lot of the energy in terms of precip production energy is right along the coastal plain of the Carolinas down into southeastern Georgia. And here's the reason why. There's the look again. Tomorrow morning up at 500 millibars. Notice the close low on the GFS. Here's the NAM at the same time, sort of a positively tilted, much more diffuse 500 millibar setup moving on in. So, which is right? Well, let's go to the Canadian operational run. Notice at 7 a.m. tomorrow, it still has that closed upper air low. And so I tend to think the GFS is more correct. Let me show you another model. This is the UK Met, how it handles things. Here we are at 7 a.m. tomorrow, 1 p.m. tomorrow, and here we are 7 p.m. tomorrow. Heaviest precip south and east, but it does at least spread precip all into pretty much on the entirety of the Carolinas. The Canadian model that I showed you, this is the global Canadian model from the 0Z run today, and the blue shading, the first shading of blue, that's a ½ inch of liquid QPF there, and that makes it to roughly Charlotte, and it's of course certainly all of North Georgia and back into North and Central Alabama, at least a ½ inch. This is the SREF. This is basically some short-range ensemble models. Oftentimes this is a good tool in these wintertime events especially, and it has at least a ½ inch into a good chunk of North Carolina I-85 and points south. And again, just hang with me. I'm going to show you a lot of stuff. This is the WRF model. All right, this is valid, let's see, at 3 a.m. tomorrow. All right, this is valid at noon tomorrow, and then that is valid at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Okay, now here's what the HPC is going with. There is their outline of at least 4-inch probabilities of snow accumulation. That includes North Georgia, the upstate of South Carolina, up through a good chunk of the I-85 corridor in North Carolina, back toward Asheville as well. Now again, the big difference in the NAM and the GFS. There's the NAM total snow output for this, and here's the GFS. Quite a different scenario. You take all that with a grain of salt. And the GFS is gradually moistening up. One final set of things to show you. This is interesting. Let's go all the way back to 12Z yesterday's run. And what you're seeing here is the amount of precip in terms of liquid put out in hundredths of an inch. So for instance, where you see here at Charlotte, it's saying 40, that's 4/10 of an inch. So let's look at the trend here. 12Z yesterday's run, 18Z yesterday's run, 0Z today's run, and finally the 6Z today's run. And notice each subsequent run, generally speaking, at most sites has gotten a little wetter. And I tend to think the GFS is on to the right idea. So, again, let me stress, this map I'm going to show you, very preliminary. This is my preliminary snow accumulation map. This is a very tricky forecast, but there you go. Anywhere in that white shaded area, which includes a lot of real estate, all the way from parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, up into the Carolinas, eastern Tennessee, a dusting to an inch. The blue shaded area, so I'm going with a widespread potential for 1 to 3 inches. That includes places like Birmingham, up toward at least Atlanta, Asheville, Greensboro, Raleigh, and then the heaviest precip maybe right along the I-85 corridor from Atlanta to GSP to at least close to, if not a little south of Charlotte, maybe a little south of there, and I'm going with a general 2 to 4 inch area there. That's the preliminary idea. May adjust that as we get more data in, and if the NAM is right, these numbers are way too high. I'll say that. If the NAM is correct, this will bust badly, but I'm leaning more toward the wetter models, and we'll see how that plays out. All right, that's it for today's edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. God bless.